Hello, everybody. We are StudioR12, and we are a stencil company, and we are here to do DIY and painting with you. I'm Patty.
I'm Carrie.
And we are excited that you are here. We are going to show you a really cool technique today. And then Carrie has a few announcements, and then I'm going to get started with the lesson.
Yeah, so my announcements are quick this week. You want to sign up for our newsletter, so you can go to StudioR12.com, and if you have not signed up for our newsletter yet, you will get a big spinny wheel. You can put your email address in, spin the wheel, probably get a discount, but that is going to be the best place to find out about sales, about new products, about new videos, about additional tips or tricks or techniques that we are stumbling across and want to share with you. We also share customer photos there. So it is really the best place to be. We're also on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and Instagram and Pinterest. And I think that's it. But we're all those places sharing all kinds of fun things. Typically on Tuesdays, we are live at 12 p.m. This week we are recorded.
Yes, we're vacationing. It's the month of June 2024, and we had all of the schedules went like this. And so we just decided to pre-record a few of our live, just our commentary type things. You guys can still put your comments and questions into the chat box of wherever you're getting to us from, and we will make sure to get those answered. It might be a little delay because of vacations, but know that we do get to them.
Yeah, we'll get to them. Yeah. And then on Saturdays, we release new videos on YouTube, and they are solo artist lessons, either on a specific project that we're putting together or on a specific lesson or technique. Do not let the design itself dissuade you from watching, because if we're painting a lemon and you're not a big lemon fan, there might be a lesson in there that you still need to know.
Yeah. So everything that we do, like today's lesson is going to be, the stencil is Be Brave, Run Free, Stay Wild. That may not be your vibe, right? But the lesson about how to do the background is what we're talking about today.
And I think it's going to be everyone's vibe once you see how cool it is.
Yeah, it's a super cool technique, but you gotta, like, we gotta put like something on it to show it. It wouldn't be pretty, so we couldn't make a thumbnail.
Yeah.
If we didn't like finish the thought,
Yeah.
you know. So we want to take it all the way across the finish line, and then you can see the finish line, and you can see the lesson, and you can skip out. We always timestamp our videos, so you can also jump ahead to the parts where you're like, ooh, how did she sand that background? How did we apply that edge antiquing? You know, that kind of stuff. So you can and bounce around.
Yes. They don't have that noises when you... However, Steve did add a really cool noise. I said pop the other day, and he added a to when he threw something up there. So Steve's been adding some fun stuff to our videos.
That's fun. And then make sure that you go and subscribe and ring that bell for YouTube so that you can be notified when we have new content, because we have hundreds and hundreds of videos. You guys, if you want to know how to paint, I'm a 35-year veteran of, I'm also a veteran, but I'm a 35-year professional crafter and painter, and I have been doing this a long time. I have painted all across the country and internationally, and published books and articles and all of that kind of stuff. So I know what I'm talking about, and I want to pass that information on to you guys.
Yeah. I'm just here for fun.
There's my what is that? My calling card right there.
Yeah.
All right,
that's your elevator speech.
Yeah, there you go. All right, you guys, let's get painting. So today what we're going to do, let me show you, the destination is this lovely background technique. Okay, so this is interesting for a couple of reasons. You can do it two ways. I'm going to show you both ways. I'm going to split my board in half. You can do it with a wax resist, or you can do it with sanding through wet paint. So either of those will work, and I'm just going to show you both of them on my board, but this is the technique that we're going for. So instead of antiquing our edge, our green paint is acting kind of as antiquing in a way. You also could do a dry brush technique, which I think I'll show you that too. I'm going to start by pre-sanding my board. So I've got my board stained with Minwax water-based stain, and this is Legacy Brown. It's 1056. I love this color. It is a color that I reach out to all the time. I'm going to take my 60 grit sanding paper on my block. We have a link to these on our Amazon store, so you can go over there and get them. They're invaluable. You need at least 2, I think, because if you use the little bits and bobs or folded sandpaper and that kind of thing, sometimes when you fold your sandpaper, you can get a really harsh, scratchy line in some places, which sometimes is optimal. But if you want it flat and smoothly sanded, then this is the best way to get that without. You can also wrap it around a board, but it loosens and it does things. This has got these spike nails in them that keep it really taut. So these are ideal. So this is 220 and this is 60 grit. And I think having 2 of those, 1 for each size, is the best way to go. Yeah. And we do have a video on how to load them because they are a little bit tricky. All right, the first thing you want to do, this is pro tip number 1 today, is you want to move your board so that your shoulder can expand forward and you get a good natural, you can move your elbow past whatever you got going on right here, okay? And you can reach it out. If I do this kind of thing, I'm immediately running into my rib cage. Okay, so if I do this, I'm gonna start arching, and I don't wanna arch. So I wanna have a nice, good reach for my sanding. I want my sanding to be straight so it's attractive, okay? So when you start arching things, your lines start doing all kinds of stuff, it is not a good look. So anytime you're sanding, unless you want to arch when you're sanding, you want to keep a nice straight line. So I'm just wanting these kind of like scratches. And then the minute I start seeing any kind of wobble, I'm going to move my board over so it's comfortable for me. Move it up. This seems like a basic technique, but it's absolutely critical because this whole project is built on this cool like background. So you have to know how to get a straight line on a board to be able to replicate that technique. Now I'm going to hold my board this way. Okay, so lots of straight lines, got a little bit of wiggle and a waggle. I started arching over this way, but I think that's going to be fine. And let's talk about 3 ways to do this technique. So the number 1 way, I'll start with the antiquing technique. And I'm going to start, let's see, I'm going side to side. So I'm going to start with that technique and show that to you. So you pick up some paint on your foam brush, and this is a poly foam brush. Super important. So these are really dense brushes. They have a lot of like flex, and not flex, no flex, very little flex. So you want a brush that will resist you pushing on your brush, okay? So if you flop straight down, like the really craft store, Dollar Tree, that kind of brushes, they will flop like this, and you end up losing the tip of your brush. So you end up painting from the middle, because there's this stick goes in this just a little bit, and that's what's happening there. And I don't know if I still have it handy.
I don't think we have it.
Yeah, I had a broken apart one. I'm not going to take time for that today, but I have taken them apart, and these brushes that we use have an actual plastic card up out of the wood stick, and it makes it a much better, stronger piece. Okay, so then when I do this, I'm going to start closest to myself, and then I would maybe turn it and reach and do some of those techniques. But what we're going to do is load the tip. And then you'll notice on my board, mostly, let's talk about like the look of it. Mostly we have a big amount of base coating at the edge here. And then through the middle, we have this kind of running streaks of paint. And then the neat thing about this is you can go back in if you jack up the antiquing piece, and you could sand through it and use the sanding through wet paint technique. You could also go ahead and pre-put on your wax and do the dry brushing or the antiquing technique all at the same time. So you can kind of mix and match your techniques depending on your skill level. Okay, so I'll load it again because I talked it dry. And we know we're going to put a good amount of paint in our corners. And then what we'll do as we come in is we'll go ahead and we're just going to scumble on some paint after we get our edges base coated.
Okay, and you might have mentioned this, and you can keep painting, but I'm going to re-say it if you've already did say it. So you mentioned with the sanding to go in one direction. When you are doing the paint over top of it, you will want to stay in the same direction for your base coat that you did with
And
your
I
sanding.
did not say that, but notice I'm going with the streaks.
I ran into that recently on a project that I painted, and I painted the base coat one way, and then when I did my stripes, I painted them the other way. So then I couldn't sand.
Yeah.
Because if I did sand, I was sanding either against the stripes or against my base coat, and then it would have caused a mess. So it always should go in the same direction.
Yes, agreed. Thank you for pointing that out. What I love, what you guys get here when you get Carrie and I together, Carrie wasn't a craft painter before she started working here with our company, and then took over the video part of stuff and all of that. So she was brand new, and then I am the 35-year veteran, right? But what she brings to the table is she brings this, I don't know how to do that. This is things I found out, and then she's willing to say them, and it's just so valuable for you guys to hear it from somebody who doesn't have, you're at 4 years, 5 years,
4
experience now. So she's lots newer at this, and so she has a lot of new experiences that she's thrown into, and has a lot of good thoughts. Because I forget what I don't know even, So getting her perspective, like just what she just said about going in different directions, I forgot to even say it, out loud. So yeah, perfect. I am appreciative. Okay, so then when you get in the middle, you could turn your brush. I'm gonna blot off just a little bit. You could turn your brush and do a little skip something, and then get some stronger pieces. And then that could be sanded. So I could go right back in sanding with the wet paint. I don't like that really strong one right there. So I can sand right through that, and notice it faded right down. So that is just a really cool technique that you can do. And then I run my hand right through the thing. Okay, the next thing that you can do is you can do the wet paint sanding. So I'm gonna go up here, and I'm just gonna leave a space so that you can see the 3 techniques side by side. I'll get my edges done, and then I'll go through and basically do kind of just what I did here. Get my paint on both sides.
With this technique, will you do heavier paint than what you did with the other one?
About the same, honestly. Yeah, it's. I would do it about the same, because if I knew I was going to want all that brown, like we're going from this very, very graphic example, and so I would just kind of smear some, and then I'll put my brush down, and then we can go in while it's wet. You could wait for it to dry just a little bit more, or you could wait. If you let it go too long, you don't get the same effect on it. So it's good to get it like right when you're painting, or when you're within 5 minutes of painting. Don't let it dry overnight and then come back to it. It'll do different things. Okay, so now I can just sand that and get a kind of a neat edge. Yeah, like look how cool that looks. Okay, and I think I don't know if I can dig it out. The one that was the lake love, whatever, the lake tall porch sign. Yeah, we've got a wall of tall porch signs sitting over here, but they're all like stacked on top of each other. Anyway, so that one is a really good example of doing a wet sanding technique. And I
will share the video.
Yeah, she's going to share the link. All right, so then the next way that you can do this.
Wait, I'm going to say 2 things before we move on.
Yes, ma'am.
On the first section.
Yes.
So when Patty was turning her brush sideways and kind of doing that pull, if you have foam brushes that you have not cleaned well and they get dried at the edges and chunky,
yes,
I'd keep those. And that is when I like to use those for projects like this, because with the chunky kind of ruffled edges, you're going to get a more natural
instead
look.
of like that harsh line that I got over here that I didn't like. That is exactly what that would prevent, is having a little bit scumblier kind of line.
Yeah, when it hardens, the paint's not going to seep in as much to the brush, and so then it's going to just kind of lay on top and pull. And then the second, when you use your sanding block over top of the wet paint, you need to change your sandpaper because
this is still like
it's
wet enough to
wet.
paint
And
me.
so then if you try to use that sanding block on another project and it has that much paint on it, if you have a white background, your white background's going to turn green on the next project.
Yeah.
We don't change our sanding blocks
very often.
Yeah.
But if we wet sand.
When you use it on wet paint, you will want to change it.
Yeah, okay, and then the third way that we can do this is we can use a wax. So we do a lot of finishing with this Minwax paste finishing wax, and then we also use the Clapham's salad bowl wax. I like the salad bowl wax myself because it's super pliable, and this is super hard. And then this also is a petroleum product, and I don't like to breathe that stuff in. So it's great for finishes, and it does all the things, but I like the natural myself. So that is a preference thing. And then you can use your applicator, your sponge applicator. It's really a good idea to note, maybe cut a corner off of it or do some like marker it or something where you can tell which one has the wax on it, so that if you don't get all the wax out, you can tell when you're cleaning, you're doing other techniques, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to dip that into that wax, and then you can just take it and streak it here and there. You can use, if I wanted to clean wax off of my surface, we use Zep, which is missing. We're doing all kinds of, I think we found spring cleaning. Well, it's not quite spring yet. I mean, it's not quite summer yet, so we're still in the spring cleaning.
Spring.
We're spring cleaning around here, so everything's not where it belongs. Anyway, but Zep is a degreaser. So you can, and you want to do this in the same line that you did your sanding. Okay, so I just put that on there. You can wash this with some soap, but you have to rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse. I'm going to say it 10 more times, and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse to make sure you get all that soap out. So you can use a degreaser, you can use a soap, but definitely you're going to squish, squish, squish to clean it out. That is absolutely a must. Okay, so I'll stuff that down in that water, and then we'll put our green over the top so it was heavy in the corners. Okay.
And now you can use a finger to apply your wax.
Yeah.
However, you don't want it to look like you just made a bunch of finger streaks. And that's something that with that technique, the sponge helps you cover a larger area so it doesn't look like you just used your finger and kind of finger painted in the background. My first one that I did, you could tell that I used my finger and it looked like I finger painted.
I have done some of those myself. The first time that I did a wax resist, I did a clock with hydrangeas on it. And I came out of my painting studio and into where everybody else was working. And I felt like a mad scientist the first time I did wax resist. It is fun to do. It is amazing. So we're just going to put some paint on there. We were obviously heavy on the edges and then not so much through the middle. Whoops, hi. And I've got to get this dry, so I'm going to blow dry for just a second. I don't need it dry. I just need it mainly dry. Okay, so I've got a big wet streak. I'm going to dry it just a little bit more. All right, so now we've got our wax on there. So we've stained, we've added some wax, did a loose amount of paint, heavy on the edges, and then we're going to sand through the middle. And then this does have that little wet streak, so I'm going to flip it over just to get that front. I tend to push towards the nose of this, so I get different pressures if I do either side. And then I'll hold onto my board, and then see how that just peels right off of there. And then I could go to, if I had another one of these, I'm just going to use the 220. And I could repeat it with another sander. I needed another 60 grit, but I could go through, let's see if I can get a cleaner edge, and get it released even more to the brown by using another sander. So you could have two sanders, and you could do the wet one and then change to one that doesn't have the wet paint on it, and then get it more brown.
And then if you let it dry more, does it peel back a different way than doing it with?
It's just a little harder.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's easier to do it when the paint is fairly fresh, and you can layer this. I could go right back on top of this, and I could put stain over everything, and then do paint again, and then layer and layer and layer. I have a really cool clock that I did once that I wanted it to look like it was old, super old. The back was brand new pine boards. The front looked so old, and there was, I'd say, 20 layers of paint. I splattered and smushed, and you can do some fun techniques. Let me show you that really quick. If you wanted to take this another layer up. So we could mix a little bit of our cream, which is number 22, with our number 43, and I can mix that color. I just don't want it to be too shocking. And then you could take it and you lay your palette knife down flat, and you can just get these like streaky, cool things. And that is another way to give a distressed look. So you could have these with this, with more of these. So I could go into a darker color and put that over these. You could just take it and build it. And I could do it with just the green, and it would give it another whole effect. Just green by itself, and then mix the two of those together. So like this is just a fun little effect. And here's what will break you out if you are, not break you out, like
not a rash.
Not a rash. Break you out from the pack is when you are going and you're, number one, giving gifts. These are also fun. So like it's artistically liberating to do these techniques. So I cannot recommend this as therapy enough. It is so satisfying once you get going and you get kind of gnarly with it. But if you're at a craft show, or you're at a flea market, or you're doing any of that kind of stuff, if you start getting the pattern stencils, if you start getting background techniques, if you start doing antiquing, if you start doing a little distressing, if you start doing drop shadows, all these techniques that we teach you, if you start doing some of those things, it will set you apart, break you away from the tribe of people who are also there, and it will set you out as a ooh, that's so creative. Oh, that's artistic looking, So like you can totally take and transform your skill level by finishing well. We've talked about that before. And by doing cool background techniques. I'm going to bring us back to this one here. I believe that if this was painted on just a green board, it would be boring. Yeah. Okay. And so this is just an amazing, it just makes it into something very clever and very cool.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I think that a lot of this stuff can seem intimidating when you're first starting. I don't do a lot of crazy background things because I'm still learning. However, grabbing a surface and trying the three different ways, see which one you like best, which one works best for you. Try some different things with the wax. Maybe put a thicker wax on in one spot and a thinner wax in another, and see what the difference is. And then you can play around until you're happy with it. And if you don't like any of it, sand it down, redo it.
Yeah. A palm sander is your friend, right? So if you have a palm sander, you can take this board back to nature and be like, okay, we're going to try again. And then you saw what I did, right? So I would say everybody's got some lumber or some wood, a plywood board or something like that laying around. Cut it into boards and have them be your sample boards. And so then you could give yourself, one side could be stained, the other side could be, black, and then you could just do your layers over that and then sand it back down and then just kind of keep going.
Well, and we do that. We do that a lot here. There are different projects that we do. When I did one of the growth charts, we talked about different ways to write on a growth chart. So we got a 2x4. We painted it the same way we painted our growth chart, and then we tried pencil, we tried pen, we tried marker, we tried paint, and we tried the different things so we could see what fits best. And we did the same thing for when we're trying new techniques and painting different things that we're not sure how they're going to work out. And we test it before we ever go to our big baby.
Yeah, and then another thing to remember, I say this a lot, is don't forget, like, we are all getting boxes from all the places we order online from. So tear your boxes down. The ones that are sturdy enough to be a surface, just play on the cardboard, and the cardboard is free, right? And so the paint is fairly cheap. And you just play with it until you like it. You wouldn't be able to stain it, but you'd be able to get like a feel for it. You could do a feel for this kind of technique. You could do a feel for the wax resist. If I was painting on cardboard to try this, I would probably just paint it brown, like a darker brown, so that I could see what my effect was, and it would seal the cardboard up as well, so that it would act more like wood.
Yeah.
So, if that makes sense.
And then we have lots and lots of videos on backgrounds. So I will share the playlist link for you guys, so that if you're interested in backgrounds and learning some different things you can do, then you can go through there, and there might be some that are more dreamy, there might be some that are more rustic, but you can see which ones fit your personality best. Yeah.
So ask questions. Make sure that you let us know what you think. Make sure that you give us a thumbs up. That helps our algorithm. It helps with all the YouTube things. You guys, we're a small company, Southeast Ohio, just doing the stencil thing and having fun, right? So we need all of the support that you can give us, and your comments help each other out too. So make sure that you take time to comment, because you're helping your fellow artists.
Well, and if you have a question, someone else probably has the same question.
Exactly. All right, so I hope that you love this. Give us a thumbs up, and we will see you Tuesday at noon.
Yeah.